of the ASB Voice of the Expert series, we have with us Professor S Sankaranarayanan, known to all as Shanky. He is a B.Tech from IIT Madras and an alumnus of the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Dr. Sankaranarayanan holds a PhD from the Card School of Business and has taught at the University of Kansas, University of Pittsburgh and the State University of New York at Albany, at which he continues to be associated with. Shanky has over 10 years corporate experience both in India and the US. He has worked with the Tatas and the Murugappa Group in India and with trailblazing IT companies in the US. Dr. Sankaranarayanan is a well-published thinker. His areas of work encompass accounting, finance and strategy. Welcome to the ASB Voice of the Expert series.
Thank you, Hareesh.
Sir, obviously the recent financial crisis and its impact on the economy is foremost in many minds. What lessons have to be learned and what should be done to avoid future catastrophes?
As you know, the recent crisis kind of originated in the USA and went all over the world, including it touched India in some ways. Essentially, some time ago, Alan Greenspan mentioned that the investors have this irrational exuberance, and essentially what happened in this particular instance was not only irrational but also bordering on illegal exuberance and illegal activities and so on. Essentially, they just expanded the securitization industry to beyond normal comprehension. There were these credit default swaps and collateralized mortgage obligations and debt-backed securities and all that stuff, essentially originating from home mortgages. And when the home mortgages were given at the time just to boost up the economy to subprime borrowers, in other words, people that had some difficulty but they're below the prime quality. When the going was good, it was good, but when the going got a little bad, which is when the market took a little dive, all these securities started deflating and losing its value. So everybody started, it's like a pack of cards, one falls, another falls, another falls, and ultimately ended up in a very big banking crisis. And these people didn't even know the extent or the nature of the security they themselves created. Because many of these credit default swaps were so money in dollars, and this company AIG apparently ended up having a liability of almost like 60, 70, not 60, 70, almost like 3, 4, 5 trillion dollars. So it's really a huge problem that came about. But again, the underlying cause is some uncontrolled activities, unregulated or unsupervised type of things. Previously, there was a Glass-Steagall Act and lots of other acts that controlled heavily the banking industry, the investment industry, and so on. Progressively, many senators and congressmen eroded away at those regulations and made them more and more free, so that everybody was just left to do whatever creative ability was able to do. And that is the problem. Now, the steps are ahead now to bring in some regulation, bring in some oversight, bring in some control, and therefore this kind of uncontrolled activity will not happen again. So that is the lesson we got.
What is India's unique position in the crisis as well as its quick recovery? Is this position sustainable?
India, as I just said, this whole crisis touched India. I don't think it kind of impacted to the extent that India was affected in a very adverse manner. The key in India as to why it did not bother so much is that in India, due to the culture, due to the tradition, Indian companies as well as Indian households are somewhat, they don't want to take up as much debt as the foreign companies and foreign households did. In the US, it is not uncommon to see a company which is leveraged 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And in households, you will find that the indebtedness of that household is almost like $10 to $1 of income, $5 to $1 of income. And therefore, that high leverage in the times of financial crisis will work very negatively on them, and therefore you cannot sustain the activity. In India, fortunately, the degree of leverage is very limited, And also the companies were conservative, they wanted to keep control, therefore there was a lot of hesitancy to take on more debt load. And the families also, when we were kids, we only bought what we could afford to pay full amount. Now of course everybody is having credit cards and all the other finances, but nevertheless we are still conservative in the amount of debt we take, and that is what helped us. And it is sustainable if we are watching our steps and do not expose ourselves too much to the foreign risks that are there.
So, some of the recent crises have been the result of unethical, fraudulent and criminal behavior of some of the participants in the economy. What role can the accounting profession play in detecting these as a part of their audit responsibility? What changes need to be placed for deterring bad behavior and for detecting such behavior early on?
Remember last year when I was here, this Satyam crisis was breaking out. Just about the same time, there was another famous case in US called the Bernie Madoff episode. Now Satyam we are all familiar with. This Bernie Madoff was an investment banker that took on everybody else's money and investing in funds and promising and giving huge returns. Not huge, 12%, 13%, some steady returns. And what he was actually doing was not investing his money, but essentially taking from the later investors' money and then giving it to the first investors and so on and so forth. This scheme is called a Ponzi scheme. So you go up on this pyramid, ultimately everybody who came earlier are paid off and the later guys are left holding nothing. Anyway, somebody actually found out that this Bernie Madoff cannot be producing this kind of return given the current economic conditions. And he complained to SEC, he sent a note to SEC, which is the enforcing authority in many of this, sent a team investigating. They talked to him, they went to his office and did all this thing and came back saying nothing seems to be wrong. And lo and behold, in December of 2008, the whole bubble burst, the whole Ponzi schemes comes to light, and he's found having defrauded investors to the tune of $60–70 billion, and therefore that Ponzi scheme kind of unraveled. He went to jail. Satyam had a problem and he went to jail. What we could have done is have an auditor. Ultimately, auditors are responsible for verifying the veracity of all these financial statements and results. So they should have more responsibility for investigative report, taking all the leads to find out where it leads and all that, and not just be satisfied with what the management tells us. Currently, there are no criminal procedures against auditors who fail in their work. There should be some severe penalties for failing in your duties and negligence and so on. So that can be done and then they'll be okay.
What role can an entering MBA play to be a responsible corporate citizen?
MBAs have a unique role in society, as you know, particularly in India. It is a much sought after profession. It's, you hear stories every day in the newspaper that MBA salaries are so high in IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Bangalore, and many other famous, even ASB salary levels are pretty good. Along with those fame and money comes a responsibility to behave or to conduct oneself in a very responsible manner. What I would say is that MBA should set themselves a high ethical standard for both personal behavior as well as their corporate behavior. They should make sure that just not the profit or the salary is important. The company should do good, they should do environmentally good products, and in personal life also, they should not go after the money, but ultimately do something good for the country, in country, society, community, and so on. Thank you.
Professor Sankaranarayanan, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hareesh. Thank you, Madhuvanthy.
This is R. Hareesh Narayanan, second year postgraduate program in management, Asian School of Business, Trivandrum, along with Madhuvanthy, signing off.